What's up guys, today we are going to have a look at how we can build this mailing list filter and import tool, and we're going to be using the Laravel framework for this specific purpose. Now what this tool will do is basically we'll take the CSV file. When we upload it, if there are any invalid email addresses, these will be filtered and only the correct ones will be added to the database. Let's quickly have a look at one of the CSV files that we've got here. For instance, we've got first John Doe, which has correct email address. Then we have this Jesse Doe with this email address which starts with this backticks. Then it's got a backtick /. We will filter this and remove all these invalid characters. Then as you can see, this record doesn't have a correct email address. This one neither, and then the last one obviously is a duplicate of the previous one. The only difference is this one has this invalid characters. So we will filter all these records, and only the two records from here will be added, the one for this John Doe and Jesse Doe, because this is a duplicate, so this one will be ignored, and these two obviously are invalid email addresses, so this will be ignored as well. Let's just quickly have a look at the database structure, which will simply have column ID, name and email. You will be able to provide any other fields if you want to, but I will only work with these three fields, ID being the auto incremental number, and then name and email address, which is what we're going to be getting from this CSV file. Let's quickly test it. If we go to the browser, select the first file, mailing list. I've got two files, and if we hit upload, you'll see that we get the confirmation. You have imported two records. Your file contained two invalid email addresses, which if we go back to our CSV file, obviously this one and this one is invalid. Then one duplicate record. If we go back, obviously this one and this one is the same, apart from the fact obviously this one contains invalid characters. And zero records existed already because our database table was empty. There were no duplicates in the database. And then it tells us which records have actually been imported. As you can see, it's also lowering all the caps in the email address as well. Okay, if we try and import another spreadsheet, if we just go back here, and if I switch to the second one, you'll see it's exactly the same except for this Mark Spencer here. We've got actually the correct email address. So now what we should get is this email address and this one are already in a database. If I just quickly check the database, if we refresh, there we go. You can see John Doe and Jesse Doe are here. So these will be duplicates in a database. This one will be the new one, so should be added. This one is still invalid, and this one obviously is still a duplicate from within this CSV file. So if we go back and try and import this second one now, and if we hit upload, and there we go, it tells us that it imported only one record. One was invalid email address, which is this domain here, and then we have one duplicate record, which would be this Jesse here. And then we have two already existing records, which were already in a database, which was this John Doe and Jesse Doe. If we check our table, refresh the page, you can see this Mark Spencer has been imported. So let's now try and import the same file again. So let's say this mailing list 2. If we open and try to upload it, you will see that we have imported 0 records because one was invalid, one was a duplicate within a spreadsheet, and 3 records which were valid were already in a database. As you can see, imported records, no records were imported. If we check our database, there are no duplicates. We just didn't add anything. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to install the Laravel, and I'm within my codes directory, so I'm going to start with Composer, create project, Laravel /Laravel, and the directory I want to install it within is going to be mailing-list. And Composer should now install the instance of the Laravel. So if we wait just a moment, everything should be ready for us in just a few seconds. Now Laravel has been successfully installed, so if I just navigate to mailing list, and I'm going to open this project in my editor, which happened to be PHP Storm. So I've got a project now open in PHP Storm. If we go back to the browser, I want to download the exercise files, so github.com and then /ssd-tutorials. And here, if we look for Laravel mailing list filter import, you can just type in the search repositories field, or just, if it's obviously visible straight away, you can just click on it. And what we want is to download the the copy of this repository, which contains the exercise files. Okay, if I now open my file browser, double click to extract it all, what I need to do is to take this template view and copy it to our resources views directory. So I just copy it, and if we go back to our editor and we go to the resources views, and here I'm just going to paste it, template.blade. We can remove this welcome.blade, we're not going to be using it. So our template's copied, and for the tests we can remove this example test, as we're not going to be using this one. From the test we're going to use these tabs, so copy the entire directory and paste it within this test directory within our project. Okay, and that's everything when it comes to the exercise files. We don't need anything else from here, so we can remove these files. Now, next thing we need to do is to update our env file. For the database name, just put the name of the database that you're going to be using. My one will be called mailing_list. And now to create it, I'm using Homestead locally. So what I'm going to do is go to the SQL Pro, and I'm going to create a new database and call it mailing list, and that's going to be UTF-8. Audit, and that's database ready. We're not going to be creating tables manually, we'll use the migration, so we can now save and close the env file. The next thing we need to do is open our PHP unit.xml. I want to create two new environment variables, and these will be, first one will be for the DB connection, which is going to be SQLite for testing, and then we're going to have DB database, which will be the one in memory. So colon, memory, and colon. Save it, and also stop on failure. I prefer to have it set to true. If there's one failure, don't execute any more tests, just stop on this one. So save it and close it. And next thing we're going to do is to install a few packages. So if we go back to the browser, and if we navigate to packages.org, and here, what I'm going to do, I need two packages. First one is the Laravel IDE helper, which is going to be barvdh Laravel. There we go, this one, Laravel IDE helper. And what I need to do is just copy this, go back to the terminal, and let's paste it, hit return to install this IDE helper. A few more seconds and it should be done. There we go. Okay, if we go back to the browser, let's scroll down and see what we should do. So we've got it installed. Now we need to add this service provider to the config app.php. If we go back to our project, config app.php, and under the providers section, let's just add it under this package service providers. Save it. Now, if we go back, what else have we got here? We now can add this PHP Artisan IDE helper generate and IDE helper meta within the scripts post update CMD. If we go back to our editor, open our composer JSON. If we scroll down, we have post update CMD. After this post update composer scripts, let's paste these two lines. We can now save and close the composer, and that's everything, nearly everything with this IDE helper. We can also get this config file published. So if we just go back to the terminal and paste this line, so that will basically copy the file from within the package, this config IDE helper.php. If we open our editor again, you will see we have this IDE helper, and you can change some options here should you need to. Okay, I'm going to leave it the way it is because I won't be making any drastic changes here. Now, if you're not bothered with this IDE helper, you don't have to install it. It's not essential for this exercise to work. It's just so that actually packages like the one we're going to be looking for now and installing it is automatically showing not as highlighted within my IDE, basically. So it recognizes it. Okay, so the next package that I need is MAAT website Excel. There we go, that's the one. If we click on the link and then copy this composer require command, if we go back to our terminal, paste it and hit return to install it. While this is installing, let's go back and have a look at the documentation. What we need to do, What we need to do is basically add this service provider here again to our config app.php. So let's go back to our editor and do this. Straight away config app.php back to our providers, and right after the one we've pasted for the IDE helper, let's paste this one back, and then we have this facade that we need to add as well. And again, you don't have to do it if you're not planning on using a facade, but I will be using facades within this exercise, so I'll paste it here again within the same file, config app.php, but under aliases, and right at the bottom this Excel which we've just copied. Okay, one last thing, I'm going to publish this config file for this package as well. So back to the terminal, copy this line, paste it, and that will copy this config from the package to the config directory. If we go back to the editor, you'll see this Excel now has been added here. I won't be changing anything, everything stays as default, but if you need to change anything, obviously please feel free. Okay, so our app.php is now ready. One last thing I'm going to do is to set up a virtual host for this project. I will be using Homestead. If you prefer to use PHP Artisan Serve, do that, but I will be using Homestead. I've got everything separate from my local environment, so I'm going to navigate to my home directory, and from here I'm going to go to Homestead, which is where my Homestead installation is located, and now nano Homestead YAML file, and I'm going to add a new project here called mailing list. So what I'm going to do is space map mailing list.dev 2, and we are pointing to home vagrant. Then we have code, and then we have mailing -list and a public directory, which is where we should be pointing. So we've got mailing list, and then the public directory is where our index.php is stored. Okay, back to the terminal. So Control X, Y to save it, and the name file of the file stays the same. Now I also need to edit the host file, so sudo, because I need administrative privileges to edit this file, nano editor again, and etc hosts file. And there we go. If we scroll down, and 192.168.10.10, and the domain name is mailing list.dev. Control X, Y, and return. That saves the changes. Now if we navigate to the home directory, so that's cd, and here we go into cd homestead, and here we're going to run vagrant provision, and that should provision the changes we've just applied. And in just a second we should be able to access our project under this new fake domain, like this virtual host. So mailing list.dev, hit return, and we are getting this error which is related to this welcome.blade.php file which we've removed, so everything is fine. Let's move to the next video when we start actually programming our mailing list filter.